Hi, my name is Phil and I'm a senior lecturer in astrophysics at the University of Lincoln. And in this video, I want to go back to galaxies yet again, but I want to cover a kind of an unusual or rarer type of galaxy that's not kind of like the other sorts, like spirals or ellipticals. There's something unusual going off here. And these are ultra-diffuse galaxies. So, if you haven't come across galaxies before, I'm going to recap what they are, what the common types are, before we go into the ultra-diffuse galaxies. But if you know all about that, then just skip towards the back end of this video so you can actually find out what those sorts of galaxies actually are. So galaxies are vast collections of stars, gas, dust, also dark matter bound together by gravity. Now actually the gas and dust, not necessarily true for all galaxies. Same again with dark matter, some have more than others. But as a fairly general view of galaxies, they contain lots of stars. Some of them contain lots of gas, dust, dark matter. Obviously, you've got your planets and other stuff there, but we'd probably classify that as like, well, we wouldn't classify it as dust, but it's definitely not gas. So these are these very large objects. Now they come in a variety of different sizes and shapes. You can get dwarf galaxies. You can get galaxies that are basically like spheres. They're quite featureless. You have disk-like galaxies that rotate like a disk, spiral galaxies, jellyfish galaxies. You've got a whole range of different sorts of galaxies that you can have. So it's not just one type, two types, three types. There's lots of different sorts. And if you've seen some of my previous videos, you'd have come across quite a few of those already. So just to recap the classification system kind of your galaxies, if we have this tuning fork here, which you'll come across if you've ever come across galaxies in a textbook or you're learning about galaxy evolution or classification, you'll know this particular diagram here. And it's known as like the tuning fork diagram, I suppose. It's the Hubble classification. Now, it's not necessarily true to how they evolve. It's kind of a bit backward, but just because of how they were actually originally labelled, I suppose, and discovered. Now, the spiral galaxies sit on the right-hand side there, and they actually evolve from the right-hand side to the left. So the spiral arms get tighter, they lose gas, because that gas gets turned into stars as they form, things like that. Then you've got your ellipticals as well. So spiral galaxies as a general rule, and this is not true for all spirals, this is just a fairly general view of spiral galaxies. They have a high amount of gas that obviously gets depleted the older they get, the more they evolve. They have bluer stars, younger blue stars, because young blue stars are recently formed. They're big stars, they don't last very long. So if you see blue stars, it means they're going to be quite young. Spiral galaxies have significantly more of these than older type galaxies. They also have disk-like dynamics. So they have a net rotation. They rotate like a disk. They're kind of shaped like a disk. That's pretty much it. You then have your elliptical galaxies. These sit on the left-hand side, and these are mostly classified by shape. Just worth noting that sometimes on these diagrams you have an intermediate section on the spirals. Instead of having the two branches, you may have three, and that is an intermediate one where you have the barred spirals along the bottom, intermediates, and then normal spirals at the top. But if you check out the videos on spirals, you'll learn more about them anyway. So ellipticals, it's mostly on shape. They go from spherical E0 to E7, which is kind of more cigar shape. However, I'm going to do another video on these ones that are more elliptical or cigar shaped, because actually they might not be elliptical galaxies. These could be misidentified lenticulars, and they could be edge on. So we're going to do a separate video on those completely, but generally they still use this sort of classification because they do share quite a lot of properties. And those properties are, they don't have any star formation. Again, not necessarily true. They do have some star formation, but it's generally very weak. They have no gas. Again, they may have very weak amounts of gas, which means they have small amounts of star formation. So it's not always true that they have zero gas. They have very, very small amounts, some of them, and it's not completely zero. The movement of the stars themselves is more random. So they have high velocity dispersion compared to their rotational dynamics. So they're more random-like and not a disk-like dynamics. And because there's no real gas or star formation occurring, or it's quite weak at least, it means the population of stars are quite red. They're old. As stars age, you're left with the older, redder stars. So the galaxies as a whole appear redder than your spiral galaxies because they're generally going to have an older population of stars there. Now, that's your two main types, I suppose, disk-like spiral galaxies and elliptical galaxies. Now, ultra-diffuse galaxies, we'll call them UDGs here, are very faint and they're very low density. Now, I've actually drawn a line around this galaxy so you can actually see it, because there are other galaxies in the background which are brighter and they're further away. This is a very, very faint, very low density galaxy. So what's going off here? Well, they contain very few stars and they're spread over very large areas. So that's why they're particularly faint. There's not many stars in them and they're spread over quite a large area. So again, it makes them very faint. Now, in comparison to a dwarf galaxy, they're going to be bigger. But dwarf galaxies are faint, they're not very bright, and they have a small number of stars in them. The difference being here is that dwarf galaxies are actually small. So there's the Milky Way, or at least a representation of the Milky Way, which is the galaxy that we reside in. That's where the sun is. And a dwarf galaxy will be considerably smaller than a galaxy like the Milky Way. And they're faint just because they have a small star, small size, very few stars. Now, these ultra-diffuse galaxies can actually be quite large. They're not necessarily small galaxies, but the reason why they're faint is they have a low number of stars in them. So they could be almost comparable in size to the larger galaxies like a Milky Way, or our Milky Way, as I should say. But because they have so few stars in, their total mass or stellar mass of the stars is quite low. So it could be, a few percent, 1%, the total stellar mass of the Milky Way. So very few stars. It's also probably worth noting that these ultra-diffuse galaxies, they still have quite a lot of dark matter there. So they could have quite a lot of total mass, just not stellar mass or stars. Now, you're probably aware what stars are. Stars emit light. And if you have less stars, it means overall your galaxy is going to have a lower luminosity. It's going to be less bright. So this is what contributes to the faintness of these particular galaxies. A normal spiral galaxy like the Milky Way has a relatively high density of stars in comparison, so a lot more stars, it's going to be brighter overall. Think of having lots of torches all pointed in the same direction. You take away half those torches, it's going to be less bright. Same idea here, you've got less stars emitting light, which creates less luminosity. Now, they're typically found in very large galactic or galaxy clusters. These are very large structures of galaxies that are all interacting with one another, and you can see a really nice picture there where you've got lots of different sorts of galaxies there. You've got elliptical galaxies, spiral galaxies, I can see barred spiral galaxies, and if you look really carefully, there's probably some interacting as well, so they're kind of tidally distorting each other. So they're quite, I don't want to say densely packed, but they're dense enough that they are interacting with one another in these clusters, and that's quite important for these particular types. Now, I'm actually going to go back to jellyfish galaxies, which if you haven't seen the video, I'm going to recap what they are anyway, because they relate somewhat to these ultra-diffuse galaxies. So jellyfish galaxies are these ones that have these really long tentacles coming out. So let's say we've got a spiral galaxy highlighted by the yellow box there. And then coming out to the bottom, you've got these tenuous tentacles of gas coming out of the actual galaxy itself. And these are being stripped from that galaxy, and it makes it look a bit like a jellyfish. And there's some really good ones that really do look like jellyfish. This one here, you've got the spiral galaxy on the right bottom there, and then you've got this really long red tentacles of gas coming out of it. So again, it kind of resembles a jellyfish with these long tentacles. Now, jellyfish galaxies typically start out quite gas rich. They have lots of gas in them. So think spiral galaxies, a young spiral, lots of gas in there. You're going to get lots of star formation as a result of that. But what happens is these galaxies are moving in the galaxy cluster, and as it moves through the medium in the cluster, I put interstellar medium, it's probably intergalactic cluster medium, whatever the intra-cluster medium, whatever the correct name is. And that's creating a ram pressure. So imagine, if you stick your hand out of a window in a car going really fast, you're going to receive some kind of force there from the air moving past. Same kind of idea here. You've got a galaxy moving through the galaxy cluster, through the medium, and that creates a ram pressure, which then strips out the gas from the galaxy, and the tentacles form behind the galaxy. So as the galaxy goes through, that gas is pulled out and left behind, creating those tentacles of gas. Now what happens there is they become gas poor, because just stripping the gas away from the spiral galaxy, the main galaxy itself becomes gas poor. That's going to have an impact on the star formation rate. So you're going to reduce down, or maybe even halt, that star formation. Now, you do actually get stars forming in the tentacles as well, but we'll disregard that for now. What you're doing is you're removing gas away from that galaxy before it can actually produce those stars. So it's still a fairly sizable galaxy, but you're taking away its source to make stars. And something else that happens is that this ram pressure can actually puff up a galaxy, so it can make it appear bigger than it actually was. And the end result of all that process is you end up with a fairly large galaxy with very few stars in, which means it's a diffuse, faint galaxy essentially. Now, I've mentioned jellyfish galaxies because they have a similar process of ram pressure that's removing their gas. And it could be that maybe some jellyfish galaxies end up being these ultra-diffuse galaxies. But it's quite likely that these ultra-diffuse galaxies are experiencing a ram pressure from interactions with other galaxies. So here you've got two spiral galaxies that are tidally interacting. They are gravitationally distorting one another, and that can induce ram pressures, which can strip gas away. And it could be that these ultra-diffuse galaxies are tidally interacting with something else, which has stripped the gas in a different way. But nonetheless, what we've done is we've took the gas out of a young galaxy, we've halted that star formation, and it could have puffed up. So we then end up with a very faint, diffuse galaxy known as an ultra-diffuse galaxy. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoy or find the videos helpful, then do consider becoming a member. There's extra videos in the member section, and there's also other benefits of becoming a member, but it also just generally helps support the channel and make these videos for you. So thank you for watching.